Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon and evening, and have a nice meal who is currently eating. We're back with our student branch of IEEE at Nazarbayev University podcast and with our esteemed guest, Professor Daniele Tosi. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, thanks a lot for the invitation, it's a pleasure.
We know that Professor received IEEE Sensor Technical Award in 2018. And he is Associate Editor of IEEE Sensor Journal and full professor at Nazarbayev University. But what's behind of this great human?
Okay, great. Maybe I'm not sure, but we'll see. We'll find out.
So, Professor, let's start from the beginning. And can you tell the place you were born?
Okay. Yeah, I was born in Italy. So, honestly, in a small town, which is called Alessandria. It's a tiny city, and it's, let's say, in the northwest part of Italy. But it's like 1 hour drive from Milan, 1 hour drive from Turin, and from Genoa. So kind of in that area, but not a big place by itself. It's more like an industrial city.
Oh.
So not very connected, not great universities, but at least it's more like a working place.
So, by your description, do you miss Italy, considering the climate of Kazakhstan, and it's so different from that you were used to be?
That's a tough question, because of course, Italy has a lot of good things going on. The north part of Italy is still quite cold in the winter and very humid, so the weather is maybe not the greatest. The south has a much better weather.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I miss Italy sometimes. Not so much professionally, because once you start working, at the end, you're kind of always in the mindset of working. And also I'm lucky that I have the opportunity to travel many times a year. So in any case, it's important to keep a balance between the family place, the working place, and maybe discovering some new ones. So. Yeah, at the end, I'm not missing that much.
Okay, good. So we were talking before our beginning of the podcast, and you said that you travel twice or once a year.
Yeah.
So is it enough for you to fully just energize and come back to work?
It depends, because I noticed that if I'm away from work for a long time, like more than 3-4 weeks, then it's hard for me to get back to work.
Oh,
but at the same time, if I'm going away for 5 days or so, I'm not really, getting away from work. So it's like it's not really recharging. So there is kind of a intermediate time that is okay for traveling, discovery, and that depends also on the opportunities, because sometimes the travels are for research opportunities. Sometimes it's just like holiday. So it's important to keep a balance. Also because it depends also where you travel. You might have some time to get used to the new environment. In this case, being in Kazakhstan is sometimes a disadvantage, because wherever you're going, you have always 3, 4, 5 hours of different clock, and it takes for you like a couple of days to accommodate a new clock. So after a certain age, it becomes hard to adapt. But it's important to travel. It's a recommendation also for all the students that whenever you have an opportunity to travel somewhere, you should take it, because what you receive back is more than just the experience, but it's in itself it's also new knowledge. Even negative one, like you're going to a place and you don't like it, but at least you have now a new perspective, even for your own.
Even though that we will ask that question in the end, so the first advice that you give us is to travel, and sometimes it might be hard, but you will receive back more than you just gave.
I want to go maybe a little bit deeper in that, and there are different levels of traveling.
Okay.
Like you can travel to another country and just be there on holiday or for an adventure or anything else. That's giving you something. When you're going to another country for a longer opportunity, for example, you're for doing a degree or for spending some time or for doing a collaborative projects, regardless of the time that you're spending there, it's different, because you have to adapt also to the other country. You're working there. But the completely full experience comes when you work abroad.
Okay.
So working abroad, not like for having a time or a period of work like a business trip, but really working. So take your salary in a different currency. Pay taxes to a government that is not your government. Register to your embassy as a foreign resident. That is a full experience because you don't have a place to return to. At the end, even if you come back home, you will still be unemployed, let's say. So you have to make it work. You really have to, and you have to make it work completely. That means like you will have to scream to somebody in a foreign language. You will be screamed to in a foreign language, but it gives you the whole experience. Like you have to understand the culture. You have to really make it work, and go through all the problems that you have. Okay. Once you do that, you can see even your own previous experience in your hometown or in the places you visited under a different perspective, because there are several things that you like from your place that maybe you didn't even know that you liked until you go somewhere else and you find that they are different, and now you feel like that the experience that you had was great. Maybe there are things that you didn't like about your previous place that you didn't even know, and then when you come home you can improve. So it's I think that really working abroad without a place to return to, it's the full experience.
How was your experience during your students' years at the University of Turin?
It was a nice experience, of course. I studied at Polytechnic University, which compared, for example, to IEEE-NU is a much larger institution in terms of numbers. I think it's about 25 to 30,000 students, to give an idea, and only in engineering or architecture. So the university is larger indeed, but certainly of a good quality in terms of education and the whole process of becoming an engineer. So it was certainly a good experience under this point of view. The university in Italy is different with respect to the experience at IEEE-NU, because in IEEE-NU students have a campus, for example, containing all the facilities. Italian universities don't really have a campus, so only a very few students are living in a university premise. Most of them are just renting an apartment in the city and living more like the city life. So it's not that you cannot go to the gym. You go to the gym in the city. You play basketball, renting the court in the city. And that means also that a lot of students, like I was doing, are commuting from the hometown to the place where they study, which also means that you're constantly shifting. So it's kind of a different experience, but it was very formative. Also because the academic system in Italy is also a little bit different. Students are not graded with letter grade, and they can fail courses multiple times, which means that in general exams are much harder because you are expected to fail a few times in your university progress. I also did that. Not often, but happened.
Yeah. So from your student life, what was your favorite subject and what was the source of your teaching style?
Yeah, that's actually interesting because when you study particularly subjects like in engineering, which are very going deep into some areas, it's possible that the subjects that you end up liking are not the same one that you thought you will like when you start the university. So it's possible you start the university and some subject that you say, oh, this will be great. Then when you start, it becomes like, But then other ones that you might not even know before and end up being, your main subject later on. I personally loved all the parts related to electromagnetics, which back to when I was studying was a subject that was strongly developing, and of course now it's integrated in all the educational part because that's everyday life. Wireless communication now are certainly a super hot topic in telecommunication. Back then it was at the beginning. And when I started studying photonics, I understand that it was my main subject because I understood the potential of the technology. So, I didn't know much about photonics before entering the university, but when I started studying it, I understood that it was going to be powerful. And I ended up working on that. So, yeah, that was my main one.
So, and another question, what is the source that you're powering your teaching styles?
Yeah, actually, the teaching style is, more than a style, it's important to read basically the level of the course, the class size. At the end, the teaching is a service for the students because nowadays, students already have all the resources. To be honest, the students don't need a teacher. They can go wherever they want and find all the resources. The instructor can give this extra, element of expertise, of connection, so that instead of wading through the whole literature, wading through an entire textbook, which might be a boring task, you might have a person who makes it entertain more, makes you understand what will be the potential of that. That will be probably the importance of an instructor. So that's what I try to bring during my classes. It's not always easy to do that, partly because the students already know the subjects often better than me, even at the beginning, and that's okay. The instructor is not a person who is working with students and teaching them how to read and write. The instructor is a person who elevates the knowledge that the students already have, and possibly even larger, and to the next level. So to give them maybe the field of application of their technology, to give them field of application of their knowledge. So that's kind of the job of an instructor. So it's a figure that has changed in the past 10 years, and certainly it will change even more in the next 10.
Yeah, that's true because with our currently developing rate and the AI introducing in every aspect of his life, everything might be changed.
That's true, and that's a question that I would like to ask also to the students. Like
you can ask there.
Okay, what will be not only what will be the impact of AI, but at what time AI will be better than a physical instructor? Would you accept to be graded by an AI? Because I'm sure that all the students will certainly accept that an instructor is using AI as a tool. Because it's a tool, it's available for everybody, and we all use it. But will the students accept that, for example, they are graded by an AI without any instructor, any physical instructor? Will they accept that a course is entirely taught by an AI without a physical instructor? It's a question that universities will have to answer, because right now AI is already in general achieving a better results than a generic instructor. Not all around. So that means that AI knows, for example, chemistry better than me. AI knows part of the math better than me. So if you ask me to solve a math problem, an AI, probably I wouldn't be able to solve it, and an AI does. But what an AI doesn't have is the specificity. So in my narrow subject, I've seen that even the AI don't have enough experience, because it's the specialization. It's the idea that you work on this subject for 5, 10, 15 years, and then you become really skilled at that. So for the future, it's important that we all have a flexible mind, but that we really become committed in our field, because it's what basically will give us an advantage, an edge over any AI platform.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a question that I think we need to have a solution at some point, because the AI will be in a strong partner in the education business in the next years following up. So we have to have not only a policy, because the policy is basically just a piece of paper. We need to have a philosophy, like what will be our relationship with AI? Is AI going to be our friend? Is AI going to be our competitor? Is AI going to be our tool? Is AI going to be our chief?
Okay.
We don't know the answer of that yet.
Yeah. So, another question now. Favorite professor? Is there a person that you loved most and you were inspired by him or her?
That's actually a good question. More than one person, it's maybe some persons, like that, throughout my process basically were of good inspiration. It's important that universities also are able to really, and basically connect the students with the industry, with the academics, because as a student I was inspired by some people, not necessarily by academics. For example, the university where I studied first had very good connection with engineering. So we had, for example, guest lecturers that come from the industry, and they were really able to show us the application of what we were studying. So that was very important. In a PhD program also, yes, I was lucky to have to meet a few people that were really inspiring. Also, I met them in the conferences, which is another place that I encourage people to attend, because you find out what other universities are doing. So yeah, it was important to have some people that inspire you. The people who inspire students, they don't have necessarily to be highly achieving persons, but rather they have to be good people, like people that are really able to have a certain academic life, a certain mindset, a philosophy that is welcoming.
Yeah, that's a different perspective that I think most people are accepting, because when we're trying to inspire someone, you're trying to say what you achieved and trying to list it. However, your perspective, your lifestyle, and your well-being is more important than...
It's more important than the achievement, also because to set up an academic career based on the accomplishment of a certain achievement is maybe not a very good proposition. Because first of all, what happens if you accomplish the achievement? Then your career is over. You don't have any motivation to continue. Rather, that's a lifelong. That's going to take the entire life. So it's not important to base on the achievement of a specific target, but it's rather the development of the field. So an academic is motivated by developing the field, by living 5-10 years after you start working on a specific subject, by leaving it better than when you started, by having that this area is now much stronger than before. It's broader, it's more performing, it's more affordable than before. And this is never an action of one person, at least not in current environment, but it's an action of the entire academic community. If you look at the discoveries, we are now making much more scientific discoveries per year than we ever used to be in our history. Yeah. But often we don't see the application of these discoveries. We know very well what people discovered 50 years ago and when it was applied, or 100 years ago and when it was applied. But now we all have a high brain because we have a longer history. We have a much easier access to knowledge, and that's why each of our development is a stepping stone toward the future. But it's not going to be one person developing the future. It's going to be everybody carrying a contribution. And that made the technology cycles get as fast as we have today. Yeah.
So it's a part of the question. Why did you choose to pursue your academic career?
So I decided to pursue an academic career because I thought I was a good fit for me. I understand that maybe I wasn't really a good fit for working in a company immediately, but rather to try to have an academic career, which is certainly much less regular than an industrial position, and more something that you have to build up yourself. But it was good for me, so it was a choice that I made, and that. But I have to say that I'm still thinking about the future. I'm not 100% sure that the rest of my life will be an academic career. So there is always the possibility to switch to an industrial position or to come back. I want to be flexible on that.
Of course.
So, but we are lucky at this time. we can choose our career much more flexibly. There is much less prejudice about interrupting your career for joining a company and then coming back to academia. There is a lot more acceptance for that, and so a lot of people need to try 3, 4, 5 roads before they find their own one. I was also one of these.
Yeah, of course. You have to try before you know. And
Yes.
how do you know if you don't try?
Exactly. So you have to try, and at the end you will find the right fit, which is different from everybody, because the academic job is a job at the end of the day, and like any job, it requires some skills, and it has some opportunities. Not everybody has the same skills, and so it's not a job for everybody.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. So, about your career and about your developments, what was your first research failure, and what was the biggest success that you are proud of?
So, when I started doing research, it was basically during my master degree. And one of the first failures was not actually a failure, but was something that we had, and that made me think immediately about how to organize research work. During my master thesis, we were fabricating some optical devices that are now very popular nowadays, and we were fabricating them in the lab. Today, these devices are commercial, but back then we used to fabricate them in the lab. One of the first failures that we had is that it rained. It rained outside the lab, and as a consequence, due to some, let's say, bad quality of the building, it also rained inside our lab, damaging the laser that we were using to fabricate the devices. So everything was doing fine in my work, and everything was like doing very well, and all of a sudden we couldn't fabricate this device anymore because and I understood that was an important thing to me, because I understood that failure is not exactly like a condition, but it's rather a continuous part of our work. We fail many times doing our work, and usually the more ambitious is the project, the more often you have failures that you have to keep working on. So it's not that simple. In the academic life also, failure is never 0-1 condition. Always we are able to prove something within certain boundaries with some performances. Maybe a failure means failing to reach the performance target that you had in mind. But that leaves open the challenge for the next, for the next work. To be honest, research and failures are good partners. When we succeed, this is the end of our project.
Oh, yeah.
So when we really succeed at doing one thing, and then 3-4 times in a row, so really we are able to do something, demonstrate everything that we want to do, that's the end of it.
So sometimes...
Because it's not research anymore. It becomes something finished. There is no point in redoing something already done.
Of course.
So in a way, failure, we have good relationship with failure. We like failures because they always keep us evolving our project in different areas. The success is problematic, because when we succeed at something, it means usually the end of our project. And it will be somebody else probably to continue them. So, and in terms of success, actually, while we don't have an amazing set of success that are always measurable, but rather it's small steps, like publishing your first articles. That is an important boost of confidence, for example. Having your first devices done and used by other partners, that is not only a boost of confidence, but it's also making you really comfortable with the results you're achieving. For a researcher, it's one of the first targets that it's important is when somebody else builds on your result, because then you understand that your output is not yours, but it becomes propriety of the whole scientific community. Other people are working on it. That's usually a good success.
Yeah.
When it happened, I was happy.
So that's what people should be proud of, that you can share more than you just receive.
Yes, but that's also a part of the scientific community that that actually has this mindset. We should never underestimate, even for a young researcher, even for an undergraduate researcher who is at the beginning of career, knowing that you are part of a scientific community of people that know each other and that help each other. The results that we are achieving here are replicated, are analyzed by other institutions as well. And we do the same with their institution. And to have this international network that goes around the whole world, often we find out that the world is much smaller than we think, because we see that the researchers that worked in our group, for example, they work in groups that we know well before us, or the opposite, like the researchers who work in our group, they join groups that we also know well. We really make the whole connection. Yeah.
Can you elaborate a bit about achievements?
Yes, the achievements, that we often set as a target are nice, but we have to consider in a research environment that achievements are always having a temporal limit. We achieve something and which a few years after that is going to improve anyway, by us or by someone else. So to say that we have achieved something in terms of the pure scientific achievement, or let's say the pure achievement of a target, is a short-term proposition. What is important in the system is the know-how that you generate. Like, you have achieved something, okay, but you also have generated the know-how of, for example, several researchers who know how to integrate this achievement into other areas or into new systems, or how to bring it to the market. That's the actual success, because it's not just an achievement, but it's an achievement, the know-how around the achievement, the competence around the achievement, the connections that you make, everything around it. So in that case, just the achievement itself might not be so amazing. It's more like everything that gets generated through that, the whole process that makes a substantial step forward.
So, do you like NU students?
Yes, I'm very happy to work with the new students. I am almost 10 years here. I can see that there is a certain culture that characterizes the students of NU, which is very important for a university to create a culture, a certain mindset. And I'm very happy to see that several students have obtained important results, not only here but also abroad, so that the university is now taking a totally new international dimension. That's actually something that is very hard to achieve. And so the fact that it's started to get achieved, it's really a good story. It's really a good progress for the university. So I'm very happy with working with the students. So yes. They are nice. Students are very nice.
We also asked this question from our previous guests, and they also mentioned that they like students here. And I think that's a part of the reason that you are still here for 10 years, for decades.
Yes, at the end, the university cannot live without students, without researchers. When we're talking about a research group, they are doing all the work. So it's really their work. We are just partners, companies, but the actual hands are usually, students actually putting their hands into each project. So it's actually, and the university is as a mission, and is for the students, is not for faculties. The mission of a university is not to evolve faculties. Faculties know how to take care of themselves. The mission of the university is to evolve the students, to put them into high position after that, to give them the right know-how to start companies, to join companies, to work as academics in Kazakhstan or in any other place. Every time I see often students after they graduate, after they finish working with us, and I like to track what they're doing, and we, as a faculty, we should always remember that the students are very, keen to learn, to develop. So sometimes they just need a good suggestion, But it's important not just to focus only on the achievement of students that often have a high GPA, but also to the ones that actually, even those that are sitting at the bottom of the GPA ranking, because they are also, their GPA doesn't matter, it's the culture that they have. I can tell you one thing. I met a couple of years ago, I was on holiday in Almaty, just for a couple of days. And when I was about to board the plane back, I saw a former NU student that he came to for a couple of times to ask me for advice because he had a very low GPA. So he was afraid that his GPA was not going to be enough to apply to other schools and so on, so that he was going to be blocking his career progress. And I told him that this doesn't happen in the real case. If you work in a company, at the end of the day, where you get the degree from and the mark on your degree doesn't really matter after just a couple of weeks you work there. He was a bit skeptical, but then he found a very good job. So he was, he said, like, he told me, like, yeah, I didn't know back then. I wanted to believe in you, and then at the end I found a good job, and that was fine. So yes, he's working in Caliosa.
Where?
In Caliosa.
Caliosa? Okay.
The company, the one that...
Caliosa?
Caliosa, yes.
Okay, good.
The one that sells the, used cars. They also have apartments and so on. So, yes, he is working there. He was very happy.
Yeah, of course.
So, yes.
Good. So, that's the proven part of your morality and your, I would like to say, that the agenda that you bring with yourself.
Yeah, more than an agenda, I mean, it's like the agenda is to be changed. I mean, you cannot really go with an agenda. As a faculty, we come with a research plan. So
okay.
We call it a research plan. A research plan is the things that we are working on, plus the thing that we would like to do, plus how we are going to get there.
Okay.
Plus how to convince all the funding agencies to invest on us in order to achieve there. Because yes, research sometimes is expensive, it needs funding, it needs research projects. The achievements often, need some investment, but they last at the end.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
So yeah, more than an agenda, I would say a research plan.
Okay. So, for the decade you're here, and this long story, and I would like to ask, also you're the only professor, the full professor at Nazarbayev University in LC department of electrical engineering.
Yes,
Is it correct?
I guess so, yes. Yeah.
And how did you achieve this? And because, why I'm asking that? Because it isn't an easy task.
It's not an easy task, but it doesn't change the job completely.
Oh.
I can tell you another story. A while after I was promoted and I returned from the holidays, I met another colleague who congratulated. At the time, I was talking with a student in the atrium, and he didn't know that I was promoted. And he said, okay. So now you're going to have a like bigger lab, and I told him, no, that's not part of no. So you're now going to have a lot more funding. And I said, no, that's also not right. So okay, but what he was not understanding what the new position, and I told him it's exactly the same position. So the title is a title. It's good to achieve the whole full progress, but the title is in generally a title. Normally in an academic environment, at least from my personal perspective, the step between becoming an assistant professor, which is the earlier position, and an associate is the possibility to run a research group. So the idea that there is now a research group that is strong in the field, well connected, and capable of running research not by one hand but by many hands. And in general, a full professor is a person who is capable of raising the new faculties as well. So the group that has, this history of development now already start to have their first faculties inside, so that it's not anymore a one-man show, but it's know-how that gets spread and generalized.
Okay.
Often comes with the maturity of the research field. Things that we used to do 5 or 10 years ago became standard in our field, and there are people who try to replicate, to use their own method, and so we are very happy that this happens because it's a validation also of our progress. In a research group, it's never the development has to be collective. The whole group, develops. It can never be one person that develops. So when you see the successes, you have to understand that they are all shared between all the team members. And it's only a matter of time before the actual name, even the naming, will shift to team members. But we all know that it's a collective effort. So it's never a one-man show. It's always a collective effort. So every success that even carries the name of a person, it's always a shared success.
So do you remember, from shifting your career, do you remember the particular student for this long history? And yeah, this is the question. Do you remember any particular students?
Yes, of course.
That you're proud of, or you remember them for something?
Of course, both the ones that are still working with us, the ones that are not working with us. We now proudly to have that one of our first PhD student in our group, we texted a few days ago, she is now going to be a faculty in Florida, United States. So that for us is a great achievement because it's not an achievement that we do here, but also it means that the job we are doing here is recognized, even in the United States, which is the largest academic market in the world right now.
Oh, of course.
So that for us is an important achievement. Yes, there are many students that we still in contact together. They constantly ask recommendation letter even after they have joined for any institution. The relationship is very strong. And so it's always like a mark in your curriculum. You came from that group, and the connection with that group maintained to be high. So yes, we keep following each other. We even have a WhatsApp group where we keep all the former lab members.
Okay.
So they receive notification about our developments. So it's important to have this belonging. I mean, this idea of belonging to a group, even after you leave that group, but you still belong there. Same for me, and I'm still in contact with the group where I made the PhD and at Politecnico di Torino. We're still in contact. I visit them sometimes. This is a continuous operation.
So our next question is about the students, and what advice would you give freshman year students for freshmen to become your research assistant, or is it even possible?
So generally, while I don't think first year students are let's say legally possible to become a research assistant, but certainly they can make experience in the lab. So I recommend that. It's always good to take also experience with the dynamics of a research group. We had several students that started in early stage, even first or certainly second year. In a couple of cases, we even had interns from high school. So we had this type of experience even in our lab. So it's certainly possible. Of course, it's all experience that people make. So I certainly recommend that. Research group does not necessarily have the same skills required for education. So the success in research is often not tied to GPA or scores that you take in courses. In fact, in our group, some of our most successful researchers didn't have very high GPA to start off with. So that's quite, because research requires some unique skills, including commitment, including getting all the training, being able to become independent as soon as possible so that you don't really depend on a principal investigator, but rather you are capable of developing a project on your own. So I do recommend to do that. I do recommend to not get discouraged in case you don't have the right skills, because nobody has the right skills to work on a research environment. You have to get there anyway. People do in the education, we cover the basics so that you have all the right tools in your backpack, but in a research environment, you are working with one of the best in the world. So you have to anyway get there and train in order to work there and be proficient. So I certainly recommend to do that. And actually, it's an invitation for the students. If somebody wants to work on our topic or get to know more about what we are doing, we always we are always very public. We can visit the lab. We are always very open with any new member. We try to have, whenever we can, lab visits or getting some training events for the new members. So it's always possible to get updated and start working.
So freshmen, high school students, and not only sophomore and second year students, everyone is welcome in the lab of our professor.
Just write me an email.
Yeah, of course. So moving to the next part of our conversation, you have lived and worked in Italy, USA, Australia, UK, Ireland, and Kazakhstan. In which of these countries would you like to spend your retirement?
First of all, I didn't think about my retirement yet. I guess I still have a lot of years to work. Maybe retirement is something maybe that I can spend in my home country, but I have still a long way to work before I get there. I'm not even close to remotely thinking about retirement.
Yeah, of course. But is there a specific country or place in the country that you liked and that you will choose to spend your pleasure time without thinking about anything?
I'm not sure about that. Maybe it could be one of the countries that are not in that list. Maybe some other new countries that I will discover later on. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess it also depends because if I will retire, presumably in 25, 30 years, we have to check whether the countries will be the same in this time. So
yeah, that's right.
I don't know. I haven't really figured that. It's a very futuristic question.
Yeah. So moving to the next part. Okay, I told you that the most funniest one is end, and now we want to know: have you been in Kazakh toys?
No.
No.
Kazakh toys.
Okay, toys like when they're arranging some kind of events when they're marriage in Kazakh.
Okay, yes.
Oh, yes?
Yes, we participated. I participated to a couple of Kazakh weddings, including mine.
Oh, okay. Could you describe
my wife is Kazakh.
Yeah, okay.
So we had a Kazakh wedding, my first Kazakh wedding was mine. But then we also participated to another couple of weddings, including one of our former researcher that she got married in Almaty, and so yes, it's nice. I got to know more about the Kazakh weddings. None of them was particularly large. Here, the culture is for having very large weddings.
Yeah, that's true.
It's true. And I come from a country where people try to avoid the marriage as much as possible, shifting to civil marriages or civil unions rather than the actual marriage. So it's interesting. It's a very cultural event here. So it's one that I like.
So what's your thought about also marriage happens in two ways, not in two ways, but in two parts. First one from the part of the groom and another part from the. Okay, what do you think about that?
That's nice, actually. It's basically a duplication of the party. I understand that I participated only to one marriage. I never had the participation to both. For my one, actually, the second part was in Italy, because part one in Kazakhstan, part two in Italy.
Yeah, of course.
Makes sense, right? I guess first part is the party for the bride, and the second one is the party, for the husband. But then there is the part three is when you go and officially get married. I understand that getting married in Kazakhstan is surprisingly easy, even for a foreigner. I thought it was going to be much harder, but it's actually surprisingly easy.
Okay.
It's also surprisingly easy to divorce. That's the tricky part. And it's interesting because in Italy we have almost the opposite feeling, where people are trying not to get married, basically, they are having relationships, but since marriages take a very long time to prepare, and the divorce is such a cruel process, people often are scared of that and just prefer a civil union, which gives you almost the same rights, but has a lot less commitments in terms of relationship. Although that still can be painful. So, yes.
So our next question, have you tried to learn Kazakh or Russian, and was it hard?
I didn't try to learn Kazakh, but I tried to learn Russian as soon as I came here. Мой русский язык еще плохой и много с ошибками, но учусь. So my Russian is still under development. I tried to learn Russian when I came here, also to be conversational, so not to be, only stuck to English language. After a while, I kind of got steady. I really didn't improve too much. That's maybe something that I should improve. I have vocabulary at home. I have like this vocabulary where I have to learn all the words. My grammar is decent. My vocabulary is still limited.
Okay.
I still have to. There is a lot of room for improvement.
So,
yes.
Another question is that I would like to ask is that we checked your LinkedIn, of course,
Yes.
and there were mention about the French.
Yes, learning French for an Italian is like learning Turkish for a Kazakh.
Oh, okay.
It's a broader language. French, Italian, Spanish, and Romanian, they come from the same Latin root language. So even though they have different declination, actually it's very simple. In fact, if I see a text in French, I kind of almost understand it, same as in Spanish, even though I never studied Spanish. But it's very easy to switch between languages. In my region also, because I come from northwest of Italy, actually that part is quite close to France. In Italy, every place has their own slang. So you have Italian and the local slang. The local slang in my region, which I never learned, however, is very similar to French because it took a lot of influence. So, particularly Torino used to be, very connected with France because they're very close to each other. So the local slang is a lot more similar to French than Italian language. So, but I never learned that also because while my mom is local, my dad is not local because he comes from another region. So at home, nobody spoke in dialect. We all speak with Italian language. So. And if you go to other regions, the dialect is or local slang is totally different from each other. So,
Almost like in China.
Almost, but I would say that in some cases the slang is even different from Italian. In Sardinia, for example, the language that they have, the local slang, is not even based on Italian language.
Oh, it's exactly like in China because China isn't like one ethnos, but complete of several different nations.
Yes, or also like in India, where each region have a totally different language, and even nationally there is more than 10 languages that are officially recognized. But even Kazakhstan is a bilingual country because as a two-language country with the Kazakh and Russian recognized right now. So that's actually quite interesting because Italy, for example, has only one language, but if you go to Italy, you will see that the accent, the vocabulary is really different region to region. If you go as a foreigner, so not knowing the language, you will immediately see that. Immediately.
Okay. I'll try it myself.
Yeah, so
okay. So next question is, what Kazakh musicians do you know?
I don't know a lot about Kazakh musicians, but to be honest, so I just listen when I'm driving, maybe on the radio, but often I don't know the musicians, the Kazakh musicians. But I came to understand that a singer that was very popular in Kazakhstan a few years ago was Italian, right?
Oh, Pascal.
I guess so, right?
Yeah.
There was an Italian guy who was very, famous in Kazakhstan a few years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, this singer was having also a small program on Discovery Channel in Italy, which was called Pascalistan. It was like episode of 20 minutes each where he was explaining his life as an artist in Kazakhstan. And it was interesting because back to the previous question, he was explaining that contrary to Europe, in Kazakhstan, the weddings are the most important event. So for a musician, it's the wedding that basically define your career as a musician. So in Europe, a musician is a person who plays in events,
Yeah.
and you play in a club. Then when you become more famous, you play in a bigger club. Then you can play, for example, in an even bigger one, which has a lot more space, or in a small stadium. Then you go to the square of the city. Then you become to the bigger stadium. He was explaining that instead for him it was the weddings. Like on the top of the list there is the wedding. And you can go to a wedding with 1,000 people, or with 500 people, or with 100 people.
Yeah, of course. That's true, because I think almost every famous person in Kazakhstan sang on the wedding.
Yeah, but he was so I came to know a little bit about the social life in Kazakhstan before I came here, because when I signed, to come to Nazarbayev University, I started to learn more about that. And a friend of mine told me, look, but there is a singer, and I started to look compulsively all these episodes of this reality show. It was like 20 minutes each, and it was interesting, So, yeah.
So our next question is about your life in Silicon Valley and what you did there.
Yes, so I obtained a scholarship that was from the Fulbright. That was dedicated to study and practice entrepreneurship for scientists like I was doing in the Silicon Valley. So basically it lasted about 10 months, and we were a group of 14, 15 students, mostly from with a background in academia. And we studied entrepreneurship at Santa Clara University, which was actually MBA level courses. That actually was extremely interesting because we were not aware of this, and actually it was very important to learn that. And we could also attend basically all the industrial and entrepreneurial scene in the Silicon Valley. And we also made an internship in a company. I also made an internship in a social network, which was a very nice experience. I certainly recommend that. It was extremely nice. So I was commuting every day from Santa Clara to San Francisco, which now is the new Silicon Valley. And it was a bit long to commute, but it was a very fun experience because I had a chance, to really work with a nice company, and which now pivoted again, and so it was nice to see the development, and it's certainly a fascinating environment. So for a technology person like me, it was very cool.
So we're moving to the concluding part of our conversation, and now I would like to ask several advices and also your experience in the lives. Have you experienced in the different countries influence your worldview?
Influences of
worldview from the different countries that you worked in?
Yes, actually, I guess so. Always a country leaves you something inside of you. From the United States, certainly I felt I've been in the Silicon Valley, and that area is very particular. So it certainly gives you a lot of energy, because the startup companies that come from there, they're of course having a very high impact. So that was very, impactful for me. I also feel a lot the influence from the places where I worked before coming here, Ireland and England. There are countries that, of course, gives you some. They're very professional, They left me something regarding how to be professional at work, how to relate with others, that I think is still useful now. And of course, having been 10 years in Kazakhstan, of course, that has a strong influence. I think it's important even for the students of IEEE-NU, because unlike other universities, they can have basically an international body of faculty that is really international. So each of them brings maybe a different type of culture, so the students can not only know about the subject, but also have a little bit life experience of other places as well. So we have faculties that come from Asia, from Europe, from America. So this actually comes as a cultural thing. So yes, It backs to what I said before. It's important to travel because, it's often a good experience. So I do recommend that. Yeah.
Our next question is, what is the most important thing in life?
Ooh,
Heavy one,
I don't know. That's a tough question, certainly.
as you asked.
Because at the end, we all having, it's about, I think it's about the impact for the other people, knowing that in any case, our life is short. It's what we are leaving behind that, will be continued by other people. So maybe it's not the thing, but trying to leave the world better than when we started is probably a good motivation for that. That's certainly true.
So, and the last question, concluding one, and we always ask this one from our guests. Give us, please, and 3 advices to the students.
So, sure. One advice that I can certainly give is to try to see the development, in your career, not as a number, but rather from the point of view of know-how. I've seen many times students trying to measure their progress in terms of going to a university that has a specific ranking, or going to a group that has a specific success, or trying to publish X amount of papers. That's measurable, that's great, but try to go beyond that. Joining a university just because it's in the top 10, 20, 50, and then ending in the wrong group is not a great progress. So try to go beyond that. Try to visualize things regardless of the numbers, but really looking at your quality of life, which is individual for everybody. Not every experience is the same for everybody. Avoid being overly attached to numbers, to rankings, but try to go beyond that, because life is really like a marathon, not a sprint. Making like a great success in 2 years and then ending up empty is also not great. So try to go beyond that. A second advice that certainly I can give is, particularly for the students here, you guys all live in a campus, which is certainly immersive, but try to have also your private life.
Of course.
Don't underestimate your private life, your free time that you do by going to the gym, doing sports, going to the movies, your personal relationships also. Those are, equally important as your academic progress. So you cannot throw one in the garbage just because you have the other one, So don't underestimate the time, the quality time that you spend with your own activities. And the one last advice that I can give is to not get too attached to the failures, to the negative experiences. Don't leave that as a personal failure. Move on, learn. There are 2 problems when you see the failures as a failure, as a negative event. One is that failure is just failure. It's going to conclude there. So in any case, whatever happens, you just go ahead. And even we don't evaluate our researchers based on their success or failures. We evaluate them regardless of their results, because there are great researchers who just work on a project that is somehow unsuccessful for many reasons. But the researcher is still great. We can still, work with them. Or the opposite, there are maybe researchers that are maybe very weak, but end up working on a project that is successful. But the researcher is weak, so they still have to develop anyway. So we don't do that. The students often have this tendency of leaving failures very negatively. And the second thing is that if you leave the failure negatively, often you don't understand why you failed. And then it's hard to fix. Yeah. There are things instead that you have to fix, that you have to analyze. If you leave failure negatively, it's hard to make this self-analysis that instead you need to to do, understanding your gaps, your problems. Because maybe students are failing in their academic life because of specific gaps that they have, and they might need to go to a coach to help them study better, or they need to go to a psychologist, for example, to improve some areas of their mental being, or they have to go, or they have to free some time because they are too committed to their academic time, or the opposite, they have to commit more on their studies because they're not dedicating enough time. You have to analyze that in a scientific way. So yeah, the outcome should help you to improve.
So to recap, you as a student are not limited to a student. You have to go beyond numbers. Don't underestimate your own life, and don't leave failures as a negative event.
Yes, I would say that there are numbers, back to the numbers, there are numbers, but there are also the intangibles. So there are things that are measured, but you should also make sure that there are things that are intangible. Much like when you play sports, if you like to play basketball, you look at the box score and you find all the statistics, but there are those intangibles too, all the things that you do that are not really measured, but still gives a large imprinting for your life, your know-how, your relationship with the others. What the point of having going to a high-level university where, however, you don't feel so great, you don't develop great relationship with others, you don't develop much as a researcher because you end up in the wrong group, or in your research project you're left on the borders because there are other people working on that. What's the point?
Yeah, that's true.
It should be the opposite. Maybe it's better to go to a different place that, however, gives you more empowerment, gives you better relationship, where you have I think that's important.
Thank you for your advices. Thank you for your time here, and thank you, the watcher, the viewers who are paying their time and watching this. Okay.
Thanks a lot to all of you.
Yeah. Thank you for watching, and thank you, Professor, for your time, for being here. And also, I would like to thank everyone who is behind the scene, who is preparing this, who wrote these questions, who finds this place, and who is currently filming this. Thank you.
Thanks a lot to all of you.